Greetings, class. In this installment, we're going to talk about what does be hard on the problem, soft on people from page 55 of Getting to Yes mean. And so they give an example. I'll change the words a little bit, but they give the example of when you have a problem, and it might be between an individual and a construction company, and that the individual wants to be strong in reflecting and pursuing their interests, and the construction company is doing the same thing. And so the problem, right, as they present it, is that the individual is seeing the work that the construction company is doing as being potentially dangerous to public safety and public health. In particular, they're seeing that there are no fences that have been put up around the job site, and there's lots of children who live in the neighborhood, and children are curious, and those children might go onto that property and get hurt, either during the construction, sneaking on to get a look, or going onto the premises when everybody's gone home for the day and like fooling around in the process construction. Right? So this person can say, look, this isn't a safe situation. Normally for job sites like this, from what I've seen, safety fences are put up to make sure that no threat is presented to animal or human life, right? I mean, it might not even be just that a person cares about the kids that live in the neighborhood. They might not want anybody to be worried about their cats or dogs if they get out or get loose or something, that they end up on the work site getting harmed by what's going on. I mean, long list of things that a person could be concerned about, where a job site involves heavy equipment. On the other side, completely understandable. There's nothing about me that wants to present the hypothetical construction company as like cost cutting or, putting profit over public safety. I think it's a completely reasonable business model for people to try to limit their expenses, which would mean limiting the extra expenses that would happen from a job site. So if the job site does not require the use of a safety fence, lots of managers might feel like there's no reason that they want to take on this extra burden because all that does is inflate the costs, and that reduces the profit to the business. And that since they're not required to do it, that there's no reason why they would have an extra suspicion that it would be necessary when it hasn't been required. In addition, putting up a safety fence, size and location might be really important, but that might be not just an expense financially, it might also take time. And that those are resources that if somebody's worried about hitting their target deadline, getting the job done on time, which, a customer and a boss are probably expecting, doing extra tasks to increase safety that hasn't been expected or requested might be seen as unnecessary. So they give a presentation about, this kind of imagined problem that could occur between two different parties where they have competing interests. And, so you don't need to be conciliatory is part of what they're saying. Like, right? You don't just give up about what you think because, you're giving up on public safety if that's important to you. Like if you're worried that this job site has the potential for injuring, maiming, killing, somebody in the neighborhood because there's big, heavy equipment that's driving around and it just seems like there's just too much potential for something to go wrong. There's no reason why you would give up on that. That's something that's really important. If they tell you that actually, our job site safety protocol is a lot more involved than you think, and we have a lot of stuff that's happening so that we can guarantee that even if a child were to sneak onto the job site, we wouldn't miss them and they wouldn't end up accidentally getting injured, something like that. But there's no reason to give up on it. But what do you do, right? So this is the part where they're advancing the strategy of hard on the problem, right? The problem is this seems to be dangerous, right? Just framing it however you want. It might be the problem is we need to have fences to keep kids out and there's no fences. Might be more general. Problem is that this looks like it could be dangerous. But that's the problem, right? Let's increase safety. But the people are the ones that are involved. So if you go into, right, if you're able to schedule a meeting with somebody, who's responsible for this project, and you go into that room and says, like, what's the matter with you guys? Like, are you trying to kill the kids here or what, right? That's hard on the people. Like, you're coming at them hard. Like, you are bad people. You're trying to kill kids. That's not the kind of thing that gets somebody to open up their ears and listen to what you have to say. It's the kind of thing that makes somebody defensive. When you make somebody defensive, then what happens? They're not receptive to what you're trying to push forward at all, right? That might be a good strategy. It might be a good coercive strategy. It might make somebody really afraid, like, oh my goodness, I need to put up a fence before something happens, right? Because sometimes people don't know that there was a problem until you let them know. But there might be more strategically sensitive ways to let people know that there's a problem, right? Can you imagine, right? Somebody has a job site and they don't know anything about the area that they're working in, so they just get to work. And then you come over and say, hey, you seem like you're hardworking people. You keep a clean job site. I just wanted to let you know that, there's a lot of kids that live in this neighborhood. And, if there's extra stuff that you want to do, like in advance to make sure that, everybody's safe, great. And the person might be like, thanks for letting us know. We had no idea about the neighborhood. We'll be sure to put up a fence right away, right? That's what happens when people get better information. They make better decisions. Better decisions don't always mean that they give you what you want, but better decisions, right? You know that there's kids around and you figure out what you're going to do about that and how that might impact your planning. Right? Soft on the people is the part where you seem like a reasonable person, right? You seem like a reasonable person. I'm giving you the credit for having the capacity to be able to freely think and make good choices, right? That's a great way to start. I mean, it might also seem like a bit manipulative, and that's not exactly the words that I would use, but that's what the book's offering, and I don't have any reason to say that I have specific complaints about it. It's just not my normal everyday word use. You seem like a good person, and I'm sure you care about kids. So what do you think we should do about making sure that this work site is safe for you and all of the kids that are in this neighborhood? Yeah, right? You phrase it as a problem that we can collectively solve together, right? That is tough on the problem. We have a problem we have to fix, right? You're not letting up on there's a problem here, but you're being soft on the people who are involved in advancing the other side. And by putting yourself forward in a way that you're saying, I'm willing to work on this with you, right? You show a willingness for problem solving, right? As opposed to pointing fingers. And anyway, so that's what they're talking about. Identify problems. That's what we do in life, right? We pick nits all the time. But when we go about finding the problems and the mistakes and the things that we need to get changed in the world we live in, and we approach people from a hard on the problem position as opposed to the hard on the people, right? Same thing might be said for police jurisdictions that seem to have records that show elevated cases, disproportionately elevated cases of police brutality or racial profiling or something. You go to a police station and say, I want to talk, to the chief of police because you guys are some racist jerks. Probably not going to be a really good way to get them to listen to the complaint. If you get a chance to come forward and say, So there's this problem. I don't know if you're aware of it, but I've been collecting data, and the data that I see shows that, right, could be a city in Ohio, not too far from where I'm living, where you say, yeah, I found the data and I did some analysis here, and African Americans make up 0.2% of the population of the city, but they're pulled over and responsible for being involved in a full 10% of all traffic stops. What do you think about that? Instead of launching into the part where you're racist and that's why this is happening, which might be the case or might not be the case, right? I mean, like, we can observe, right? We could perceive a behavior as being racist, and whether or not we believe it to be doesn't necessarily mean that that's what somebody was doing or why, right? We don't actually get a chance to know somebody's motivation until we ask them and hear their answer, and then we have to decide whether or not we trust their answer or not, right? But again, so if you go in there and say, yeah, these numbers, these are pretty clear, and the person's like, well, what makes you think that that's so clear, right? I mean, that might not be a evidence of racial profiling. That might be evidence of some people are worse drivers than others, right? The data might be interpreted in different ways. Who's to say what all of the analysis would be? But if you go into it as hard on the problem, this is a problem. This looks like, we've got things that are going on. And then you get people into the part where, like, they're willing to address the problem with you. That can be a very, very good strategy. Another way you might hear it is that you attract more flies with honey than with vinegar. So if you make the people who are on the other side feel like they want to work with you, you have more opportunities for positive change than if you make them feel bitter or resentful of you. Anyway, see you all in the next one.